Well, it is the festive season, and of course, here on the Trading Bell, we continue to give you unmatched content. Today on the program, we are having a very special guest, and that is Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu, who is the CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. She is with us here this particular day, and we'll be talking at length about entrepreneurship in the continent, as well as what can we get out of entrepreneurs when it comes to giving them support. Well, just before we get into the interview, who is Ifeyinwa? Let's take a look at her profile.
Ifeyinwa Ugochukwu is a lawyer and a passionate advocate of the transformative power of entrepreneurship as the key to economic development in Africa. She joined the Tony Elumelu Foundation in 2017 as the Director of Partnerships and Evaluations, a role she held for 2 years. She was appointed in April 2019 as the third Chief Executive Officer of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, Africa's leading philanthropy. She holds the distinction of being the first African to hold this position. As CEO, she is responsible for the overall development and implementation of the Foundation's initiatives, overseeing its day-to-day operations. She also steers the Foundation's positioning, partnership, and engagement with the wider development ecosystem as TEF launches into its next stage of scale, expanded impact, and intelligent mining of its proprietary data on African entrepreneurship. Ifeyinwa is a proven leader with business vision and the ability to bring people together, leveraging her insights and global perspective as the foundation executes its strategy to transform Africa through entrepreneurship while delivering value for Africa and Africans through the thousands of entrepreneurs it has already empowered and the many more thousands to come.
Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Such an honor and a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here in Kenya and to be here with you this afternoon.
All right. So you got your appointment just early into the year under this new role as CEO in April. And many of the continent's countries are currently having a crisis for entrepreneurs. We don't have enough capital in the continent. We don't have support for these entrepreneurs because they're considered risky. But the Tony Elumelu Foundation decided to take a risk with these young, brilliant minds in the continent. Just to open up the discussion, I just want to pick your mind. When you look at the continent, what opportunities are there for entrepreneurs?
I always tell our entrepreneurs that there's no better time to be an African entrepreneur than now. Like you rightly said, 20, 30 years ago, entrepreneurs were not on the agenda of any government or any organization, but that is totally different today. Today, everyone realizes that with the burgeoning youth population in Africa, that Africa's youth could either be the world's greatest opportunity or the world's greatest catastrophe. And it's only through entrepreneurship that we ensure that is the former. And why do I say this? I say this because it is the small and medium enterprises that will create the much needed jobs on the continent. It's not governments and it's not the big organizations, because how many are they? And even in most developed nations, 80 to 90% of the jobs created in developed and advanced nations are from the SMEs. So at the foundation, we have prioritized young African entrepreneurs because we know that that is the future of our continent. That is the future of a robust economy that will lift Africa out of poverty. And so by empowering African entrepreneurs, you not only create a strong small and medium enterprise sector that will create jobs, but you also catalyze economic activity because they are the middle class that will spend in the various industries.
Interesting that you bring this up because one of the key philosophies of the Tony Elumelu Foundation is definitely to impact the young generation. From where you sit, how has the journey been? How is the progress when you sit back and say, wow, it's been already a year since I got into office?
Almost. Well, I will track the journey not from when I got into office, but from when this program started in 2015. You know, when we started, people in the development world thought it was impossible. You want to train 10,000? Where are you going to even find them? That was what was being said. But the very first year that we opened the applications, we got 20,000 applications in that first year. And so that showed immediately that there was a demand. Fast forward 5 years later, in 2019 alone, when you combine our flagship program and our UNDP program, we had over 300,000 applications from young Africans who want an opportunity to prove their concept, to get the training that they need, and to start their entrepreneurial journey. So the need and the demand is a lot. And one thing I'd like to say is that we at the foundation are dealing at the bottom of the pyramid. Unfortunately, our continent is a place where there are very few people who have family and friends that will borrow them that initial seed capital they need to start their business. Definitely the banks will not look at them because they are green, and venture capitalist companies obviously will not look at them, it's too risky.
Sure.
So who is supporting the bottom of the pyramid? So far, our foundation seems to be one of the few players, but we say that it is not a journey that we can go alone. We need collaboration. We need all hands on deck. Governments, development organizations, private sector, public sector, philanthropies. Let us join hands together and empower young African entrepreneurs. Give them a hand up. They don't need handouts. We believe that you don't give a man fish, you teach him how to fish, and that is what we're doing at the Tony Elumelu Foundation.
Fantastic work. Talking about fishing, every fisherman has to have a certain skill set. And just unpack for us, for entrepreneurs who are aspiring to join this program, which sort of skills are they looking to acquire? Because at the end of the day, you have entrepreneurs who already have a head start over others, whereas others are joining fresh, green, and ready to learn.
So our training program is a proprietary 12-week online training program that many have likened to a mini MBA. So it takes an entrepreneur through everything they need to know about starting a business, from just conceiving the idea, what is the problem in your environment that you want to solve? How can you ensure that you have a unique approach to solving that problem so that you stand out from your competitors? Then when you have identified that problem, how do you build a team? How do you market your idea? How do you ensure you have a strong brand that is not just local but global? These are the things that we teach our entrepreneurs through our 12-week training online toolkit. But having said that, the fourth industrial revolution is well underway, and Africa will not get to where we want to get to without fully embracing the fourth industrial revolution. And so technology is a critical aspect of any entrepreneur's journey. And I dare say that even though our program is sector agnostic, many of our entrepreneurs are embracing technology in one way or the other.
Sure.
Be it e-commerce, be it fintech. They understand that it's only through technology that they can stand shoulder to shoulder with their counterparts in other parts of the world. And so we encourage entrepreneurs to leverage technology and to ensure that their business is digital, because that is the only way to transcend borders.
And from what you're doing, you're creating a vast network of TEF alumni who are impacting society in one way or the other. When you assess and see the impact this is having in the entrepreneurship world in the continent, what do you see in your crystal ball? Where are we heading, say, for the continent, which for you to be considered as a successful person in society, you need to have a white-collar job. But we're seeing entrepreneurs in different sectors, from fintech, we're seeing entrepreneurs in agribusiness, we're seeing entrepreneurs in manufacturing. Perhaps, what has been the impact of your program when you look at creating opportunities and empowering the young generation?
What I will start by answering your question is to say that what we're really teaching the young is to have an entrepreneurial mindset. And whether you are in your own business that you're running or you are in a 9-to-5 white-collar job, an entrepreneurial mindset is essential for success. Because what it does is to ensure you're passionate about whatever you're doing. What it does is to ensure that you are execution-focused. And that is the key to success, passion and execution. And so that is the essence of what we train and teach entrepreneurs, whether you are in a job or whether you are in your own business. And so when I look into my crystal ball, I'm actually very, very positive. And I see an Africa 20, 30 years from now that is enterprising, productive, that is prosperous, and that can stand as equal partners with the rest of the world, because our entrepreneurs are doing amazing things. We've got entrepreneurs who, from having nothing but an idea, have gone on to create 300-400 jobs in their own organizations alone. They've gone on to raise millions of dollars in additional funding, to enter into partnerships with governments like the Singaporean government. There was a Forbes 30 under 30 that was done last year, looking at 30 businesses to watch owned by people under the age of 30. 6 of them were Tony Elumelu entrepreneurs.
Wow.
And these are the success stories that we're witnessing all over the continent. Even in Kenya here, we have an entrepreneur who is on the cusp of finding a cure for HIV, you know? So it's exciting. It is simply exciting.
Quite some bubbling feedback there. And Ifeyinwa, when you look at agriculture, is the backbone of many economies in Africa. For instance, in Kenya, agriculture country is actually a leading foreign exchange earner as a country, but we've not modernized as it should be. We are seeing the governments calling on young people, go into agriculture. There is a lot of money to be made. We are seeing young entrepreneurs coming up with different models, some taking up the greenhouse models, and there's a lot of innovation happening, and the young people are likely to be the ones feeding the urban populations in the near future. But when you look at the funding coming into agriculture, the skills gap is quite enormous. Perhaps as a TEF, how are you intending to strategize around the agriculture and, of course, giving it the right priority?
Well, I will surprise you when I say that agriculture is actually our top performing sector. So of all the entrepreneurs who we either fund or train, agriculture is 30% highest ranking sector. And for me, that shows that young Africans are realizing that agriculture is not just a viable business and a viable profession, but the profession of the future. And like what we are showing is that whether you're in agriculture, fashion, whatever sector you're in, entrepreneurs are leveraging technology. I mentioned earlier about an entrepreneur who has signed an agreement with the Singaporean government. He's an agri-entrepreneur who developed a drone technology that helped survey the crops and to determine for the farmers what the crops needed in terms of disease crops or crops that needed additional water. And today, his technology is being used in Singapore. You know, so that is what we're saying, that across Africa, we have very talented, creative, dynamic, and innovative entrepreneurs in all sectors, especially in the agricultural sector, who are doing amazing things. And what we need to is ensure that we connect them to the much-needed funding and the much-needed training. What we offer is the bottom of the pyramid, but as they make their way up the pyramid, they begin to need much more funding and more capacity building in terms of technical partnerships. And we have our platform, tefconnect.com, which connects African entrepreneurs to the entire African entrepreneurship ecosystem, as well as to global resources. And there we have our entrepreneurs, our alumni, who are able to source additional funding and additional partnerships to grow and scale their businesses. So once you're done with the program and you receive the funding, that's not the end of our relationship with entrepreneurs. It's a lifelong relationship.
This is KTN News.
Eneo la North Rift linajionea fahari kutokana na ukwasi mkubwa wa ufugaji, kilimo cha mahindi na pia miwa. Hapa ndipo tunapoangazia changamoto na manufaa ya kilimo.
Kilimo cha miwa ndo uti wa mgongo wa uchumi wa eneo la Magharibi, licha ya kwamba kilimo hicho kinapitia changamoto mbalimbali, na pia eneo hili ni maarufu zaidi kutokana na uchimbaji madini hasa dhahabu, na kwa ukanda ambao una tofauti za misimamo ya kisiasa. Ungana nami kila siku kuanzia Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kwenye Leo Mashinani niweze kufahamisha hayo na mengine mengi mbashara.
This week on Kenya Connects, not quite a holiday.
Vile baba yake pia alikuja akisema wacha tu niteremkie hapa, alisikia nduru wakisema ndio huyu ameenda na mto.
A family's dark days after the floods and saving the angels. One woman's fight for preterm babies. Also, a case for education.
I think we've got to develop a thinking society, and that happens in the classroom. It happens with teaching our kids to think.
We connect you to John Sibiokumu.
This is KTN News.
Let me drive the conversation forward. You've touched a very important chord for us in our program Trading Bell, the funding element. We're looking at the size of the budget you control. It's almost $100 million. And looking at the number of applications of young people who want to be part of this program, I know from the 54 African countries, we got about 219,000 applications, all battling for this $100 million. And looking at the capital markets in the region, they're really trying to integrate by the day, thanks to technology, thanks to new innovative approaches. But looking at the big picture, in terms of creating a bigger pot of funding, what options is TEF considering, especially now that we're seeing the appetite, the zeal by the young people to be part of TEF is growing by the day?
So the situation is a little more dire than you painted it. You said 219,000 vying for $100 million. The $100 million commitment that we made in 2015 is over 10 years. So every year we give a seed capital funding of $5 million direct to the hands of each entrepreneur, 1,000 of them that we in the foundation fund ourselves. And so it's 219,000 vying for $5 million. So that's quite abysmal. And that's why 2 years ago we opened our program up to partners, because we knew that selecting 1,000 a year is less than 1%. We're barely scratching the surface.
That's true.
Are we creating hope or are we dashing hope? And so we now have partners such as UNDP, Africa Development Bank, as well as some African countries who come and partner with us because we have a tried and tested model for intervening as far as empowering entrepreneurs is concerned. And they want to now empower more entrepreneurs, perhaps in their countries or in some certain sectors or some certain demographics. And so they partner with us. So for instance, this year, instead of 1,000, we selected, trained and funded 3,000 young entrepreneurs across Africa because of the partnerships that we have. But again, I say, this is the bottom of the pyramid. This is the initial seed capital that they need. They still need much more funding support. And that is why we are strong proponents of blended finance models. So what we do is we start with the grants, which is what you need as a startup. After that, we now link them up with equity or debt financing. For instance, we have a $10 million risk guarantee scheme with the AFD, Agence Française Development, the French development organization, and that is being offered through our partner bank, UBA. And that's for entrepreneurs who have used their seed capital funding well and have good business practice and shown that they're now at the point of expansion. Then they're able to apply for loans up to €1 million. And so these are the various ways that we ensure that entrepreneurs have access to the funding that they need at every stage of their development.
You bring up a very important point, blended finance. And we've seen a couple of organizations also opening themselves up towards this kind of approach. And a lot of African countries are also very keen on PPPs in terms of roping in partnerships. And when you look at how this is impacting the people who are applying for these programs, of course, governments will always claim that they are having budget deficits. And that's where the partners come in. Are the partners doing enough? Is there still headroom for them to scale up and grow the pie?
We haven't even started the journey. Like I said, if we are funding 3,000 out of 220,000, that is not even up to 2%. And so there is a lot of room for governments and for development finance institutions to come in and partner, because at the end of the day, it's an investment. If you invest in entrepreneurs and they grow, they will become your taxpayers 2 to 5 years from now. And what we've seen is a 60 to 70% rate of success amongst our entrepreneurs. Every entrepreneur that we empower goes on to create 5 additional jobs at the very minimum. Some of them create 50, some 300. And so you are killing many birds with one stone. You are creating jobs, you are building up your future income as a government, because these are your future taxpayers, and most importantly, you're ensuring that your youth are engaged and that they reap the democratic dividend. So it is definitely a call to action to all African governments that there is no reason why every African government shouldn't follow the footsteps of the government of Botswana and the government of Benin, who sponsored additional entrepreneurs from their countries on the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program. So I'm calling on all African governments to take 50, take 100 every year. Just commit. It's negligible in terms of the size of the budget. Commit to 100 entrepreneurs every year to go on the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program and watch these entrepreneurs and the impact and the jobs they will create in your country. It's phenomenal.
Interesting. And as we wrap up, you're also very keen advocate of gender inclusion, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. And we're seeing a new wave hitting many African countries where we're also seeing a sizable number of women are getting into business and they're becoming entrepreneurs. And of course, this brings to question the long traditional practices where in some societies, women cannot inherit land, women cannot be seen to be working as their compatriots are working. How is the narrative moving? Are we changing this old tradition?
It's changing, but nowhere near fast enough. And let me just correct something. Yes, there is a barrier to women owning property, but there isn't a barrier to women working in Africa. Women have traditionally been the workers in the African community. Just to give you some statistics, 70% of the work done globally, but 90% of the work done in Africa is done by women. 10% of the income is earned by women, and 1% of the property is owned by women. So that shows you that there's a wide gap that we have to bridge. And the way to that is education. The way to that is to reorient our minds and our cultural inclination, because yes, we've had generations where women are not supposed to own property in the African setting. Even in my own cultural setting, my customary law does not allow a woman to inherit property from her father or her husband. So we have a legislation that changes this, but the mindset hasn't changed. So even though we have laws that change this, the mindset hasn't changed. So what we need is to begin now to educate the young men and the young women, and let women know that their power lies in what they're able to create with their hands and with their minds, not in who they marry. Let the young men know that your greatest asset is a woman, because she works with her intuition, she works with her whole heart, and a woman is an equal partner in anything that you're doing. So I think that through education, through changing mindsets, and empowering women entrepreneurs. We have to empower the women. Take, for instance, the government of Rwanda. 63% of parliament is female. And you can see the huge advances that that country has made. I can assure you it's not a coincidence. So if Africa really wants to advance, Africa has to create an equal playing field for its women, both politically and economically.
And one of the interesting statistics I also want to share with you is that in the corporate sphere, organizations that have more women in boards end up becoming more profitable and they are more aligned with their corporate governance. Perhaps what is the connection?
Like I said, women are intuitive. Women work with their passion, and women are hardworking and they're honest. And so when you have an organization full of women, you can be assured of execution, you can be assured of good governance, and you can be assured of performance. And so it is a hidden secret that I'm surprised many more people are not leveraging. In terms of access to finance, it's a well-known fact that loans to women have 95% rate of payback. And the 5% who don't pay back are stopped on their way to the bank by their husbands. So you can see that at the end of the day, if you empower women, you empower the nation. When a woman is financially empowered, half of the ills of society, from illiteracy for children, dying from unnecessary diseases, starvation, none of that will happen if a woman is financially empowered. So we really need to prioritize that as a continent.
All right. And I just want to get your parting shot. It's been a difficult year for many African countries, from hunger, famine to floods. And right now, also a word of encouragement to the girl child out there who is fetching firewood, hoping to one day be like Ifeyinwa and sit on the global stage. What is your message of advice to them from a corporate titan?
For every young girl out there, I would say your mind is your greatest power, and no one has power over your mind except you. So no matter what you're going through, stay positive in your mind, create within your mind the reality you want, and it will come to you. If they break you, let them never break your mind, because that is where your power lies. And I just want to say that the girl child needs to be prioritized. We need to educate her. We need to ensure that she has everything she needs to create the world that she wants to see. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, that's where we wrap up the show for this week, and we do appreciate your valid feedback on our show. And definitely keep engaging with us on our social media platforms. You can tweet us at KTN News KE. You can tweet me at Agina Abi. Remember, the hashtag is Trading Bell. And of course, don't forget to follow our Facebook pages as well. Well, we wish you a very, very safe holidays, and make sure you invest even as you go into the festive mode. A lot of spending going to happen, but remember, there's always a January coming up. Well, from me and the entire team, it is bye-bye for now. Have yourselves a lovely holiday.